Alright, so here we are at our second step. So the next step that we want to do is we want to move the two pins out. There's one pin here, and there's another pin on the other side. However, what we can do here is, and this is, I want to do this both to show you how we can consolidate different steps, as well as how to edit steps, because at this point it's a little bit, it seemed pretty linear as far as we go here. So you would think that the best option would just be to come back up here, grab our other two pins and move them out. But what we're going to do instead is we're going to edit our step 1 and step 2. So step 1 is that pin, step 2 is this pin. We're going to edit those, and we're actually going to include the pins that are in the previous state, or that we're looking at moving now. So let's go ahead and explode step 1. Let's edit that step. So with that step selected, we can see all the information down here that is included within that. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to grab this pin here, this pin head right here. So what we're going to do first is we're going to come back over to our model tree, which is still expanded from earlier. We're just going to roll down through our model tree, come down to the pin links, the pins. We're going to roll down through it until the one that we want is highlighted. You can see that it's got that orange block around it. Then we're going to expand that. Maybe. There we go. And pick on the one on the left, which is the alignment pin. So now I'm going to select the alignment pin. With that selected, it goes ahead and it adds it into that group. And now that pin is out at the approximate same distance as the pin prior to it. Alright, so next, let's go ahead and hit done over here on the left-hand side. That's going to exit that step. Now, at this point, we can continue on with another step, or what we're going to end up doing is we're going to go ahead and come down and edit step 2, because we want to grab that alignment, or that pin head on the other side. So in step 2, let's come down. Again, we've still got that expanded on our model tree here, so we can go ahead and click on pin head. With that selected, it'll go ahead and add it into that explode step 2. We can hit done, and now it's moved on. So now we have released, in essence, this link. So if you notice here, what I'm doing is I'm moving along this in a process that requires me to remove or move components in the way that they would be moved in real life. If you remember back when we were talking about parts and assemblies, we want to make sure that we are putting these things together as they would be put together in real life. This is there's a couple reasons that we're going to do that. We want to do it this way. One is to verify fit and function. You can, if you stick with how things go together in real life, it makes it more obvious when things won't go together like you think they should. There's a lot of times when you're designing something in your brain space here, and it doesn't quite function or jive in real life. And making sure that you're doing your assemblies, that you're mating things in a way that they would actually be mated, that you're putting together in a way that they would actually be put together, that will help iron out any of those issues and fix that before you come to production, because the worst time to find out something doesn't fit is after it's made. The second reason we do that is because we want to make sure that it goes together. That's a big part of engineering to an assembly point, is you got to make sure that the thing goes together. People who put these things together absolutely hate it when the engineers don't take them into consideration. So we want to make sure that thing goes together. So at this point, let's go ahead and make one more move. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this link here. Then we're going to move this pin set. Now I want to move both of these pins because these pins now need to go. They need to go in the same orientation as this link here, because these pins go through this link hole prior to going through this link hole. So that's why we're now following that with these pins. Next, let's go ahead and click on this link. So this link is going to follow this as well. Now then, do we click on these links? Because we're going to leave the rest of this link assembly right where it is. So do we click on these? We are not going to click on these. And the reason that we're not going to click on these is the same reason that we did click on these two. It's because in order to assemble this thing, these pins must go through the hole in the double link prior to going through the hole in the single link. Because that is their first step, that's where they need to sit outside of in our exploded view. Later on, we're going to be putting some extension lines to show the exact movement of these items, and that'll give you a little bit broader of a description of why they need to stay where they're at. But now that we've got this, we can go ahead and click on our up arrow. We're going to pull this directly up. Okay, so let's pull that up a little bit to, let's go there-ish. Okay, so now we've got those moved up, and we can see a couple of issues that we're noticing as far as our parts here go. Let's go ahead and hit the done over here on the left-hand side to complete that step. Let's collapse some of these too. I don't like it when my tree gets all big like that. So a couple of the things that we've noticed now is that our explode step 1, this is a little bit close. I don't like how close that is. Explode step 2, these could be out just a little bit farther, especially this one down here. So let's go ahead and go to explode step 1. Come down here to our distance. Now we can do this in two different ways. We can go ahead and put in a distance, or we can just hit up until it gets to a distance that we like it at. Let's move those. Let's go 3.5 inches, and then let's move this a little bit here. So let's go ahead and hit our done button. Let's go back down to step 4. So this is another step that we're going to fix. So first of all, let's go to 1.5 inches in here, just to, and again, that's just to keep things round because I hate non-rounded off numbers. And let's go down a little bit. I think about there will work. Okay, so we do have a little bit of overlap right here. We may need to pull this one out a little bit, but I think we're going to be okay because we've got 2 of them here. Then we do need to pull these out a little bit still. Uh-oh. Now you can see another problem. I went too far. I exited my exploded view, so I'm no longer in that exploded view. Okay? So if you exit your exploded view and you hit this button right here, what it's going to do is it's going to start a second exploded view. We don't want to start a second exploded view. The more you have, they just kind of pile up and you never get anywhere, and every time you exit one, all your stuff disappears, and that's bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Configurations tab, okay? And then down here, underneath the default, if I expand that, you can see Explode View 1. Now I'm going to right-click on this, and I'm going to go to Edit Feature, and it's going to go edit it just like it would edit any other feature that we've got in here. So the next one that I needed to fix, I'm going to pull out this a little bit. So let's go ahead and put this at 1.75. Okay, hit done. No, that's not far enough. I don't like how far that is. Let's keep going. Let's go 2.25. And done. So we've got that at 2.25. Oh, and I exited my exploded view again. Okay, next up, let's go ahead and edit this a little bit. Let's pull this one up just a tad. So we're going to bump that up a couple. Get this one right here away from this single link, away from this double link here. We want to make sure that this isn't overlapping this, and it's not. We look like we're doing pretty good. Let's go ahead and hit done there. Now let's take these pins. Let's pull these pins out a little bit because I don't like how close this one is right here. So I'm going to come down here, just bump it out a couple, just to free up that location there. And now you can see that we've got all 4 of our components. They're all separated out, so we've got plenty of space in between them. We can see just how these are moving apart. So that's how you do exploded view, and you just walk it through that process. You move things around, you fine-tune them, but don't go back and just like continually add. So I've got these where they're at, right? So now if I click this and I want to change these. So say I want to pull these out a little bit more. So I've got that. I pull it out a little bit more. Oh, look. It added another exploded step. So now when I go back and I want to edit that, say now I'm done, and I want to edit that and bring it back in. If I do this and go like that, oh, look, now I've created another exploded step 6. Now the problem with that is, where do I edit in order to move it back even more? Do I edit it? Do I just move it again? Do I create 500 of these explode steps in here and never really know what is doing what? No, the better option is to work it through one bit at a time and edit them rather than creating new mini movements. To get rid of them, we're just going to right click and go down to delete, and then we've got everything back right where it's supposed to be. So now that I've got those moved, you can move as many of these as you want. This is the only mandatory amount, but it might be a good idea for you guys to keep going a little bit to get a little bit more used to the exploded view tool. So next, let's go ahead and hit our green check mark. We're going to exit our explode tool. So the next thing that we want to do is we need some exploded lines. We need to show where each one of these components is going to inside our assembly here to show how this thing goes together. So what we're going to do is underneath the explode view, we're going to hit the drop down. We've got explode view line sketch, and insert smart explode view lines. We're not going to do that. We're going to go to the explode line sketch and click on that. Now the way that this tool works is actually pretty nifty. It will create a line following a path of lines or axes that you select, and it's going to follow those along. Now, what I mean is, if I select on, so what I want to do is I want to create a line that goes from the shaft of this rivet here, or this pin head here. I want to put a line that goes directly through into the bore on the double link. Then it's going to come around and it's going to go back here to the bore on the single link because those two holes line up. All right. Then from there, it's going to come back out to the double link, to the bore on the other side, and finally to the pin on the opposite side. So the cool thing about this is it will do just that. I'm going to click on the cylinder around my pin. You can see that it's got a yellow line with an arrow on the end. I can hit that arrow and I can change the direction that it's coming from. That arrow indicates the direction that my exploded line will transfer out of my component or through whatever surfaces I've selected. So that arrow is going to be coming out this way. Next up, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to zoom in on my double link. And I'm going to select this because this is a cylindrical surface that shares an axis with the cylindrical surface that I just selected in our final assembly. So if I click that, you're going to see this line pop out here. That's going to come straight from there and into this here. So the next spot that this goes is all the way back here to our single link. It's going to be this bore right here. So all I have to do is click on that bore, and lo and behold, there it goes. It's going through this bore, out and around through this bore. Now this is where it gets kind of not so pleasant, is moving these around once we're done with this. But right now they're doing pretty good. Next up, we need the bore on the other side of this. So I got to rotate down a little bit to be able to get to one of those surfaces, and then I'm just going to select that bore. Now you can kind of see where the issues come, and it's not going to let me move them too much at this point, but it will. It will. Don't worry. Okay, so now we've got it to this one. And lastly, we just want it to go to here. We want it to go to this, the bore, or the cylindrical surface on our last pin head. Alright. So now I've got a set of surfaces selected from this pin head, through this bore, through the bore on the single link, back through the bore on the double link, and over to my last pin head. I'm going to go ahead and hit my green check mark. Green check mark's hit. Now, I've got a whole bunch of lines. Now later on, we're going to go in and we're going to actually move these lines around. But for now, we're going to leave them right where they're at because we've got two more that we need to be able to put in here. We need one, well, it's actually one more. So we need one going from the cylindrical surface here all the way over to the cylindrical surface here. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to follow that same path that we did on this one. So we're going to pick the pin. Oh, I had a couple of false selections before that. Okay. So we've got our pin selected, right? But you can see here, when I selected my pin, remember that arrow that I was talking about earlier that shows the direction out of the component that the extension line is actually going to be traveling from? Well, now it's going out of the head rather than the back end of the pin. So we want it on that back end. So let's go ahead and click on that arrow. Make sure that that arrow is on the back. If it's not, and it's going out the front end, it's actually going to send that line out this side. It's going to come out and around in order to get where it needs to go, rather than just going straight and showing the proper path of movement for the component to put it together in the final product. Okay, so next up we want to select the bore of our double link, then the bore of our single link, then the second bore of our double link, and finally the shaft of our last pinhead. That we can go ahead and hit our green check mark and hit it one more time to exit our sketch or our tool. So now we've got these couple of exploded lines. The problem is this one right here looks really goofy, and so does this one right here. We got a bunch of overlapping stuff going on. So what we can do is we can actually click this, and we've got a whole bunch of explode steps in here, and we've got at the very top 3D explode 1. This right here is a sketch. So if we right click on that, maybe, we should be able to, it's not going to let us do it from up there. Let's go ahead and right click here. So if I right click here, I should be able to, let's see, there should be a sketch, edit sketch. I'm not seeing it right now. Again, this is my first time doing an exploded view in 19, so you may have to hold on tight for just a second while I figure this one out. Oh, we're already in the, we're already in it. That's why I'm not seeing it. Hey, there we go. Of course, it's not doing it right. Of course, it's not. Okay, so we have the ability now to actually edit these sketches, because we're in our sketch tool, right? So we can move these lines around just a little bit in order to finely tune everything to make it look just a little bit better. If I can get this to not do the silly things that it's doing right now. Okie dokie. Well, then don't do that. So all I'm doing here is I'm selecting, not like that, is I'm selecting these lines and I'm just going to move them around a little bit so that they make a little bit more sense in their finished spots. This needs to go there. Not sure why it's doing it like this, but this one needs to go over here. Whoa! Don't do that. No, not that either. Undo. There we go. Let's try clicking this guy. There we go. That's better. Okay. So all I did was I moved those couple of lines around to be able to make it so that if you look at it from here, it makes a little bit more sense. This line goes through here, this goes through here, and then this one goes through here, and so on. And that's just done by clicking on these lines, kind of find a good view that is looking right at these lines, and then we can just click them and drag them around. Like that. Move this one like this. And we just want to make it look a little bit cleaner so that there isn't quite as much ugly jogging around. And like that. Okay. Now see, it looks kind of weird. It looks weird from here, right? Because we've got all of these, this side's bigger than this side, etc. But once we jump up here and we go to an isometric view, now it looks a little bit better because we're looking at it from an angle. That's why we moved these things to where they are right now. So that's it for that. That is how you do exploded views with your lines. You should be able to go back on this and go kind of slower bit by bit if you need anything. We will still have our lecture or our open lab on Wednesday for you guys to be able to hop in at 4 o'clock to take a look and see how this works. But that's it for this. Let's go ahead and save this. Yes, rebuild and save. If it asks you if you want to rebuild and save, always rebuild and save. Okay, so that is it as far as creating an exploded view inside an assembly. Go ahead and go to the next video to find out how we put this assembly inside our sheet and how we put in a bill of material. Go to the next one if you need that.